All right, I think we're about to get started. It's a little bit after 10, but Mr. Secretary, welcome. What we usually do is we just kind of talk to each other for a few minutes, and then we'll start in about 2 minutes or so. So how are you doing during the COVID-19 pandemic? You doing all right?
You know, we're fortunate, you know, to be where we are, blessed in many ways, and certainly keeping a lot of people who are less fortunate in our prayers right now. So a lot of challenges going on both inside and outside of state government, as you well know in your position, Mayor Schulman.
Yeah. How's your family? Everybody good?
You know, we're good. We're good. So just adjusting to a lot of quality time together. It's you know, I'm trying to look at this in many ways as an opportunity for us to reinvest in one another in many ways. I'm hopeful to emerge stronger physically, mentally, and spiritually from this time.
How many employees work for the Secretary of State? How many employees do you have?
Actual people on the payroll, I believe 306 is our number today.
Okay. And, you know, I know a lot of employees are allowed to work from home. And then the governor's executive order dealing with that and the Department of Human Resources. I think the order ends on May the 26th, so employees can come back to work, but everybody's being cautious and flexible. Were you able to get most of your employees able to work from home?
You know, a lot of them, but you know, I tell you where we were not able to get as many to be able to work from home is in our Division of Business Services, where just our
you have frozen up. Can you hear me? There you are. Okay.
But, you know, we have had people who for the last, 6 weeks have been coming in for a couple of days and off for a couple of days to make sure we maintain social distancing and keep up with the work. Because we've had a lot of people who have been trying to get information from us to be able to get their PPP loans processed and needed it right then. So that's one of the rewarding things, and one of the executive orders the governor gave us the opportunity to process those without fees so we could hurry up and get the information to those individuals who are trying to get those loans.
Good, good. Well, it's about 10:03, so we're actually going to really start. So Tre Hargett, our Secretary of State, is on the call today. Thank you for being here. We've been doing this for the last, I guess, 5 or 6 weeks, where we just invite somebody in to talk about something that's relevant and important during this COVID-19 pandemic. And obviously, you've been in the news quite a bit, and we've got elections coming up. So we thought you were a good person to come on and just kind of talk and kind of explain kind of what's going on. So I do want to recognize that Councilman John Rutherford is on the call. Councilmember Russ Bradford is on. Jason Mumpower, who works down the hall from you. The Deputy Comptroller is on the call. Brenda Wynn is on the call. And there's a man named Justin Wilson who has just gotten on the call. He is the State Comptroller.
A wonderful one.
And before I ask you what the Secretary of State's office does, we did get a relevant question that needed to be asked first, and let me make sure I'm reading this right. It says, why is the comptroller better looking than the Secretary of State?
You know, I guess because I didn't get my mom and dad's good looks and he did.
Okay. I believe that came from, I'm checking, it came from one Justin Wilson, who is on the call and is the comptroller. So
that's a shock that Justin would ask that question. I'm not surprised though.
Well, so we're going to invite Justin in at some point to be on the call, and you can send in the question as well. So let me ask you this: for people who don't really know what the role of the Secretary of State is, can you explain what the office does?
I will do my best, and I'll age myself a little bit. I say that though they've redone the live cereal commercials. Some of you will remember whenever the live cereal commercials were out, they would say. They would pass the cereal bowl to Mikey, and they'll say, give it to Mikey, he'll eat anything. And so our department winds up kind of being like the Mikey of state government in many ways. When nobody else wants to take something, we want to do it. The things that people would typically recognize, obviously one of which we're talking about this morning, are elections. You know, we work with all 95 county election commissions around the state to try and run elections and meet the highest test of integrity. And in our Division of Business Services, many of the people who are on this Zoom today have come in contact with us by filing their LLC, LLP, corporation. We're, the first stop that people will make when starting their company, and file their annual reports with us. Lesser known, whenever people have to get an apostille certification that comes into play during international adoptions or certification of documents that need to be recognized by overseas authorities, we play a role in that. For any lenders on the call, you may be familiar with us through UCC filings whenever you've had to, I guess I shouldn't say it this way, but whenever you want to perfect your interest in a piece of collateral, a bank or a lender will file UCC to do it. So, and a tremendous role in libraries throughout the state. Many people know us through our Tennessee State Library and Archives, and our building that's going to be on the new building going to be on the Bicentennial Mall starting next year, with the largest collection of genealogical search information in the state of Tennessee. But also, we play a tremendous role through our 9 regional libraries in providing support for suburban and rural libraries across the state, as well as making grants to the 4 metro libraries as well. And before the pandemic hit, we had been successful in lobbying the administration, and they had agreed to put additional monies in their budget for materials purchases for the 4 metro libraries. So we make sure those libraries have the training they need, the materials they need, the technology they need to be able to run good, strong across the state of Tennessee. Because now more than ever, we're finding that, libraries are not just a place you go check out a book. Libraries are really a community center. And now, even when the libraries are closed, they have their Wi-Fi turned on, and people are literally pulling up in the library parking lots to be able to access the library network. Because probably the people on this call take this for granted. We have internet service and we have laptops or computers, but there's still a lot of people in this state that don't. The last thing I'll mention, besides the 15 different boards and commissions I serve on, and that's a lot less than the comptroller who's on the call has, is we play a role in nonprofit organizations in the state of Tennessee, where we have charitable investigators who go out and investigate violations of the charitable solicitations and gaming law, and try and catch those individuals who are trying to do untoward things with the hard-earned charitable dollars that Tennessee gives. If you look at Nashville and Memphis, they consistently rank among the top 5 cities in the nation for being the most charitable, which in many cases, and particularly during this time of need, makes Tennesseans a target in many ways because of our good hearts. And so nonprofit organizations count on us to prosecute the ne'er-do-wells and turn those things over to the local district attorneys to make sure that we protect Tennesseans and their hard-earned charitable dollars. So, Jim, I'm happy to talk more specifically about our COVID-19 plans, but if you want to do questions, I'll be glad to try and do that and weave those thoughts into it.
Okay. Well, so let me ask you, and we'll get into the elections, because that's primarily what people are interested in talking about. But first, the libraries. What currently is the status of our libraries across the state? Where are they in the governor's plans? What can you tell us about that?
Well, really, if you look at the 4 metro libraries, as well as the other counties that have public health departments, they really get to make their own call about when they open the libraries. And really, it's a county by county basis at this point, determining when you want to open that, because library is a government service and government services have been considered essential. So local libraries and the leadership in different counties have been able to make those decisions. I know across the state are itching to get back up and going and trying to help their consumers, and also to make sure that they are able to protect their workers as protect the patrons that come in.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the elections. We've got an election coming up in August, and we've got obviously a presidential election coming up in November, along with a Senate race in the state, along with all the other regular elections, the congressional races and so forth. All right, just generally tell me what you can about what's going on, and then we'll get into discussion about obviously mail-in ballots and absentee ballots and so forth.
Sure, and I appreciate you understanding. Obviously, there's 3 lawsuits going on, and I've got to be because of the different things that are being litigated right now. There are some things I would love to be able to talk about, some things I can't really talk about just because of litigation. So I appreciate you respecting that. And I also will try to do my best to not take up too much time talking about the plan that Mark Goins and the Division of Elections, as well as administrators around the state, have developed to try and run the elections that we have under the current Tennessee law. And I know there's a lot of conversations from people, on both sides who have said, who have questioned why we do different things. We do not have the ability in the Secretary of State's office to weigh provisions of the law or say that, yeah, we don't really like it that way. We're going to go ahead and do something different. And different secretaries of state around the country, states around the country, have different powers. Different governors have different powers. And so, when you contrast what we do versus what other states do, sometimes it's not really a good apples to apples comparison. So with that said, we convened several task forces among the election administrators and vendors, as well as our division elections, to figure out what our plan was going to be. And some of you have already seen that through media releases that have come over the last week. We've released that to legislators a little over a week ago to let them know our plans. And it's a document that's well over 100 pages and goes into great depth of thinking about how we keep our election workers, our polling officials safe, and our voters safe. And first and foremost, trying to think about the safety of both those, as well as recognizing one of the things that we have in Tennessee is we have a history of voting in person. And I suspect, I would suspect, we know already that Davidson County has seen an uptick in the number of absentee ballot requests that they're receiving. And we suspect that's going to be true across the state. And Tennessee has 14 different ways that you can qualify for an absentee ballot. And some of those are under litigation right now. But if you go to our website at govotetn.com, you'll see the full list of those if you'll click on the absentee ballot request icon and learn more about that. But as Tennesseans, during a typical election, over 98% of us vote in person, meaning we either go to early voting or we vote on election day. That means less than 2% of us are accustomed to requesting an absentee ballot or requesting an absentee ballot. And with that said, now the last presidential election, 2.5% of Tennesseans requested an absentee ballot and voted an absentee ballot. So, we have built an infrastructure in our state around in-person voting during early voting and election day. And one of the very eye-opening things that occurred for me back in mid-March, as we were kind of really seeing, hey, this is going to be a big impact to us, not just as a state, but as a nation when we look at this pandemic. And we had a bipartisan phone call of secretaries of states and election officials around the country. And a lot of people really wanted to hear from people like Kim Wyman, who is the Secretary of State in the state of Washington, who is a Republican, who is the lone Republican statewide Republican elected on the West Coast. And I really expected her to say, everybody needs to go by mail absolutely right now. She's a vote by mail state, and they have been voting by mail for quite some time. And I saw a chart the other day that showed the long lead time to get to where they need to be. But she said to us, she said, if you are not already voting about 60% absentee, it's going to be a heavy lift. And the results, if you don't pull it off, could be catastrophic. And so that really got everybody's attention, Democrats and Republicans alike, thinking about, gosh, okay, what does that look like? And so I just told you a second ago, we're at 2%, and she's suggesting 60%. And so when you go to your local election commissions, they will tell you before this, hey, you don't have the equipment to be able to scan a huge increase in numbers of absentee or by mail ballots. And by the way, I'll talk later on about the difference between absentee by mail and universal by mail ballots. And they also will tell you we don't have the people to be able to do that. And so local election commissions are preparing for an increase in absentee by mail ballots, but we're nowhere near the 60% threshold. And I actually called back later on, had a private conversation with Secretary Wyman and said, look, here's kind of what we're looking at and trying to think about what challenges we have. And she shared with me, she said, well, Trey, she asked me a question. She said, where are you right now? And I said, well, on average, we're at 2%, a presidential year, we're at 2.5%. And she laughed out loud and says, Trey, I can't imagine y'all trying to pull off going to a huge increase in vote by mail. But, we do have 14 ways for people to be able to do that and trying to adjust. And we're doing a lot of advertising right now. In fact, you're probably seeing our ads on Facebook. In fact, I think our most recent one got into the 6 figures of impressions and seeing a lot of clicks from people who are interested in knowing about how to get an absentee ballot. But Jim, it's also interesting as we talk to people around the state, we obviously have seen a big impact from this pandemic in Davidson County and in some of our suburbs, and then down in Memphis and maybe even some degree in Knoxville. But when you go to some of our rural counties, they are telling us, hey, we're not concerned about it. In fact, we don't think we ought to have to wear a mask on election day. You're making a big deal out of this. So, we're trying to navigate all of those different things. And so, in fact, we had a long-time poll worker who emailed us the other day. I said scanned and emailed a letter to us and said, I'm not wearing a mask. And so trying to get that person to understand that the mask is really not about you. It's about protecting others around you. So our plan involves some necessary PPE, so make sure people have masks, they have gloves, our poll workers wear masks and gloves at the polling station, as well as to make sure we have face shields, gowns, make sure we have disposable items so that multiple people are not touching machines, multiple people aren't using the pens. In some counties, they're going to have plexiglass protectors, similar to what you might see if you're going to your local grocery store. And also make sure we're having cleaning multiple times a day, in fact, multiple times an hour of the high touch areas, just in case, the polling station, as well as good cleaning, of the machines after the polls close. So those are a lot of things that we're thinking through and how to run an election under current law. One of the things we have found is I've seen people who said, well, it's only at 2% because people don't know about it. Something that I have asked people, and it's interesting as you go around the state, we have people who tell us, I wouldn't vote by mail, for anything. And they're in high risk categories. And then we find other people who, young, vibrant, and healthy people who want the opportunity to vote absentee. So we have to run this election under current law. And that's what we're trying to do right now. So be glad to try and shut up for a minute, Jim, and be open for questions. I know there's a lot of those.
Yeah, well, so let me ask you this, and then I want to get back to the difference between an absentee ballot and a mail-in ballot.
Sure.
But go back to the PPE that's required. So, and I don't know if you have all this stuff, set in stone at this point, but take us through what the typical election day. So again, if 98% of the voters vote, at the polling location or early vote by going someplace, you're talking about a lot of people, presidential election, senatorial election, and people touching, again, you talked about the pens and, being around people. And some of those poll workers, actually, the majority of the poll workers at my location are 65 plus. So how are we going to do this to make sure that people are safe when they go to their precinct or go to a polling place? And then we can go back and talk about what's going on with the absentee vote. So how do you do that?
Great question, Jim, because if you were to ask me, kind of what is the biggest thing that I'm worried about as we prepare for this election, honestly, it is recruiting enough poll workers. And so we are actually developing right now a really strong poll worker recruitment program to help all 95 counties around the state try and recruit more poll workers that also are not in that 60 and above category. You're exactly right. If you go to your local polling station, you're probably going to guess that the average age of a poll worker is going to be around 66 years old. We're doing our best to try and make sure we recruit younger poll workers this time around who will pick up the slack. And also, I think it gives them a greater appreciation of the civic engagement process. So I'm sorry, I'm sitting there looking kind of on the right. I can see some of the questions coming in. We're going to have help of people who are going to be helping us navigate with appropriate signage on social distancing. We're encouraging counties to really emphasize early voting and open more early voting sites. as well as expanding to the maximum amount possible the number of hours of early voting. You know, some counties, they have one early voting site and they keep it open for the minimum number of hours and they're done. We're telling them, hey, you need to consider multiple locations. And also, if you've got a smaller location that you've been able to use, then you might consider going to a bigger site because you want to make sure you can accommodate the poll workers and the voters and be able to achieve appropriate social distancing. And also, you know, we shared our plan with the Department of Health. And after they came back, you know, Commissioner Piercy shared with us that how thoughtful it was, how in-depth it was, and said you should require that election officials wear the appropriate PPE. You know, they need to wear a mask, they need to wear gloves, and you need to strongly request, you know, we can't require, for legal reasons, we can't require people to wear a mask or face cover when they come to polls, but we're doing everything we can to strongly encourage that. And that's going to be something we're going to have to talk a lot about ad nauseum leading up to the August, November elections, asking people to wear their mask to the polling station. So we've got to spread out the voters over hours, over sites, and as well as achieve social distancing. And back to the thing you mentioned ago, you know, you mentioned Penn, you mentioned them as well. You know, we don't want people touching the machines with their fingers. You know, we're going to have Q-tips, we're going to have popsicle sticks and things like that, that people will be able to touch the machine to be able to register the vote that way. Similar to what I'm doing in my office right now, nobody touches the buttons on the copier right now. We're using Q-tips to touch the buttons on the copier. You know, the same thing we're doing for elevators. You know, in Tennessee Tower, you know, we've got Q-tips, we've got popsicle sticks, we've got tissues to be able to make sure people aren't touching those things. So we've thought about those things in great depth. And I will tell you, when I talk to secretaries around the country, we know it is going to be a less than perfect election. You know, and Republicans and Democrats both agree on that. And all of us, you know, right now, everybody's looking to see how we're going to handle different things. And I had a conversation with a Democrat colleague of mine the other day who he's being attacked for different reasons than what we're being, you know, talked about for. So I hope that everybody will understand the great thought that goes into this, that there's going to be people on both sides of the aisle who are going to think that we are not reacting exactly the way they want us to. And that just comes with the territory.
Well, and I know that this is a tricky situation, and you know, people are going to argue on both sides about this stuff. But go back again to just a typical voting location. So right now, you know, in you know, Davidson County, we go in, you know, okay, so you're going to have to, you know, cordon off the area. We have to present a card that somebody takes from our hand.
No, they won't. They won't. The plan incorporates that. They do not take it from your hand. We've instructed people, don't touch that ID card. They put the card down. They step back. The election official looks at the card, verifies that it is who it is. Not going to ask the person to remove their face covering or anything. Once they determine that, they move on to the next step.
Okay, so the card. So put the card down, take the card back, verify everything. Normally I sign in. So signing in just the same way as we normally do. I have to sign, I have to pick the primary, and then I have to sign in. We're still going to do that.
If you're doing that non-electronically, if you're doing that with a pen, you will take that pen with you and discard it on your way out. Nobody else touches that pen. Okay,
so then I'm handed a piece of paper that's generated through the computer system that I hand to the election, one of the election officers. So first of all, everybody in the polling place, and you know, you've got the whole state, I know that you've got to deal with. And I assume different election entities can figure out what but is there going to be a requirement that particularly all poll workers, the election officials, have a mask on, have gloves on, or how does that work?
I mean, as I stated earlier, that's one of the things that, you know, we talked to the Department of Health about and said, you know, that should be a requirement, is that people wear a face covering, people wear gloves.
Okay. All right. So the election officials are going to be there with mask on, with gloves on. So I take if I have a piece of paper in my hand, I go hand it, I guess, or show it to the election officer, and then he's got to, or she's got to go take me around. So again, social distancing. Machines, I assume, are going to have to be spread further apart. They stick something into, the computer cartridge or whatever, and then the machine pops up, the machine is ready to vote. So I'm going to have a Q-tip or a popsicle stick to actually push the vote. Is that what the plan is on these?
Yes.
Electric? Okay. Write-in, I've never done a write-in, but if somebody wants to write something in on those machines, do you have to get a separate ballot to do that? If you want to write something in?
You can request it that way, but typically the machines nowadays are set where there's a button that you would be able to hit for write-in. It brings up a screen in which you're able to type out who you're writing in.
Okay. All right. So on our machines, I know that after we hit vote, a ballot comes out, the actual thing that we voted. It's a piece of paper. And then we take it over and hand it to someone. Oh, well, actually, we don't hand it to someone. We put it on the screen, and then the machine, takes it, and it's recorded that way. So I guess from that standpoint, we're just generating the piece of paper, and we're carrying it over ourselves. So I guess if people are, social distancing, people wearing masks, again, you can't require, that's what you said, you can't require, like if I come in, I don't have to wear a mask. So, I assume there will be signage up that says, please practice social distancing, please, will there be masks available?
Please wear a face covering.
Yeah, okay. All right, so will there be masks available if somebody wants to pick one up, if somebody forgot to bring theirs in and they want to wear one?
I'm not sure what Davidson County's plan there is. I would like to think that we're going to have some available there. When you start looking at a couple million voters around the state and requiring the amount of PPE we're already requiring, then I don't know that they are going to be.
Okay, so let's get into one of the main things that people obviously are interested in, and that is a mail-in ballot as opposed to an absentee ballot. So there's a difference, correct?
Well, there's absentee by mail and there's universal by mail. And so an absentee by mail ballot is when someone meets one of the 14 criteria that we have spelled out in our statute and makes a request of the local election commission to have a ballot mailed to them. When people talk about universal by mail, similar to what they do in Washington, what they do in Oregon, and tried in New Jersey without much success here recently, was they mail a ballot to everyone, regardless if somebody requested one or not, which is pretty dangerous when you look at what happened in New Jersey recently. They tried to pull that off, and that right now, just in a local election, they've seen 3,000 ballots it looks like are going to be disqualified from being counted because of fraud allegations. I mean, there's video of one apartment complex where apparently the postman dumped ballots in the floor, outside all the mailboxes. But those are two different things. One is the voter is asking for a absentee by mail ballot. The other one is universal by mail, where we proactively mail a ballot to everybody.
Right. Okay. So we don't have mail-in balloting here.
Well, you have absentee by mail. You don't have
universal. We have absentee by mail. Okay. So give me. So I'm sitting here. You're generating a lot of interest. I'm just letting you know. I think we're getting more comments for you than anybody else. But and that's a good thing because people are interested.
It's something people are passionate about. I have to respect on both sides. And I saw somebody made a comment about it a while ago. It's not a partisan issue. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who are making it a partisan issue. I guess if I had advice for people is, I recognize, that we're in the middle of a pandemic. Recognize that the law says here's how we're going to do this, and I have to deal in that reality. And in fact, during the last few days in March, when the legislature was here, the issue of expanding absentee by mail balloting came up, and it was not approved. As recently as 2 months ago. So I could sit here and say, well, let's go do so and so. And I'm not advocating that we change the law, but what I am saying is that I have to operate the four corners of the law.
Right. So you're going to follow the law. So let me ask you one of the questions that was coming in, and that is, legislature's coming back. I think next week. They're supposed to be back on June the 1st, but I think maybe they're having some subcommittees next week. Do you know of, is there going to be any effort, or do you know of any effort that's going to be there to address this current pandemic situation in terms of voting? Do you know of anything? And I'm not asking you personally, are you
no,
I'm
I did
asking
see it. I did see I think it was a video press release from one representative who's advocating for universal by mail based on what I read. You know, and so I anticipate they'll be bringing that bill up.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the current system, the current law. So if I'm I can request an absentee ballot if I'm 60 years of age or older, correct?
Correct.
There are other reasons that I can, if I'm sick, I think I can request an absentee ballot. If I'm, currently out of the state working, I can do it. There's a whole list on your website of what you can request. So if I'm, okay, so if I'm 60 plus and I want an absentee ballot, what do I do to get an absentee ballot so that I can vote?
Okay, so several different ways that you can go about that. You can email your local election commission.
Okay.
You can ask your local election commission, although I doubt there's, it's probably not a lot of 60-year-olds at the fax machine sitting at their house where they want to do that. So email, fax, write a letter. You can call your local election commission and they will mail you the absentee ballot request, or like I said, you can go to the website, print out the absentee ballot request and mail that in to your local election commission. So those are different ways you can do that. And by law, you have to do that yourself. Now, Jim, if you know somebody area, you can tell them you have this opportunity. By law, you can't give them that request. So, I think I've had people ask me questions before, says, well, can I just print out a bunch of these requests and take them with me and pass them out? By law, you can't do that. The person has to make the requests themselves. So, but you can certainly tell them about the availability of it. You mentioned the 60 and above a minute ago, Jim. So you mentioned the 2% number earlier. Over 30% of registered voters in the state of Tennessee are over 60. And so we have really been targeting 60 and over to make sure they know what they have the opportunity to do. And we're going to see a lot of things that we are going to continue to do and new things we're going to do in the coming days ahead to make sure that every voter in this state who's over 60 knows the opportunity they had to vote absentee. And also, it's not just important that we advertise to over 60, that we talk to their children and their grandchildren to make sure that they know, and they might be encouragers to get people to vote absentee. Because for us, we want to spread those voters out. If we are worried about on election day having large crowds, if we can get 25, 30 to 35% of those people who are able under current law to vote absentee, that decreases the number of people we have coming to early voting on election day. So this is about spreading out those voters over multiple mediums, multiple hours, multiple days.
All right, so let me ask you this. Okay, so there was a question that came in about identifying, or who makes the call on whether you qualify to get an absentee vote? So a ballot. So let me ask you this. I'm 55, which I'm not. Joyce just sent me a message and said I now qualify to get a 60 plus ballot. Thanks, Joyce. So if I'm 55, but I've got an underlying health condition that makes me a little weary about going out in public right now, can I get an absentee ballot, and who decides that?
Great question. So there's a couple of things I would advise. First, listen to your doctor. If your doctor says that you're sick and you can't go to the polls, then listen to your doctor and fill out the absentee ballot request. And, if your doctor has said, hey, you're too sick to be leaving your house. By the way, a good measurement of that is if you're too sick to go to church, if you're too sick to go to the local store, if you're too sick to go to the restaurant, if your doctor is telling you don't leave the house, you're homebound, then you're sick. And so write that on the form. Now, we wondered about fear of coronavirus, which is kind of to the heart of your question. And we consulted with the Attorney General's office, and our law, based on the interpretation and consultation with the Attorney General's office, our law doesn't allow for that. Now, it's something in litigation, and ultimately it's something that a judge is going to decide.
Okay. All right. So again, who decides, again, if I'm 55 and I've got an underlying health condition, but I'm not, I'm ill, but I'm not, I can maneuver around so I can get out of the house. I could go vote, but I'm a little worried. So fear of coronavirus is not a reason at this point. But who decides that I'm allowed to get an absentee ballot? Is it a local election official that says it comes in and says, well, he's got COPD, but so I'm going to allow Jim not to come in, and he can get an absentee ballot. Who makes the decision on whether I qualify under?
Well, that's going to go to your local election commission, but keep in mind, if you're writing on there that you're sick, you're doing so under penalty of perjury, and being sick and homebound is one of the reasons to vote absentee. And I don't think Jeff Roberts is down there as a medical doctor, making that decision. I mean, you affirm that you are in fact sick when you send an absentee ballot request and you check that box.
Okay. Is there, this is such a very interesting time we're living in. Again, major elections coming up. Is there anything else on that list that somebody could use if they really are just not comfortable in coming to vote at this point? Or is the answer no, or can you even answer that?
Fear, that's not one of the reasons that's allowed in statute. And once again, that's going to be litigated. It is being litigated right now. It's an interpretation that we made in consultation with the Attorney General's office. That's going to be litigated.
All right. So let me ask you a question about, so somebody asked me a question about that reason when you're sick. Do you have to be homebound as well? Is that in the definition that you not only are sick, but you're homebound?
Great question, Jim. So if you are sick and unable to go vote during early voting on election day is how the law reads. And a good, think about this and try and think about it in a common sense fashion. Once again, if you're too sick to go anywhere, then that should factor into whether or not you're too sick to go to vote in early voting or election day. I mean, that really should be the guidance. Now, if you're well enough to go to Home Depot and Lowe's and Target and Walmart and your local restaurant and to the post office, if you're well enough to do all those things, then you're not too sick to go to the polls on election day or early voting. So, it's really think about it. It's one way to think about that very common sense fashion. If you're too sick to get out because of your illness, go to all those different places, then that should be a guide to you. But if you go to other places that, quite frankly, are taking probably way less precautions than we are going to be taking during this election cycle, I'm going to tell you, coming to the polls is going to be probably a much cleaner, healthier environment than some of the places that people are going to right now. You got to think about it that way.
All right, let me ask you this, and I know these are difficult questions, but so I know you're working hard to get information out about how to do all this stuff. What is how are local entities getting the word out? Because August is obviously not that far away. So how are we getting that information out to say, these are your options? And obviously at this point, we are where we are. I get that. And a lot of people chiming in and saying that, pandemic, people should be allowed to vote by mail. I understand that. You have to follow what's on the law at this point. But how do we let people know? So as an elected official, I remember early on encouraging people from the vice mayor's seat to go vote. We want people to go vote. Now we've got a pandemic that is scaring people, and we're just opening up. Nashville is just going to phase 2 on Monday. How do you convince people that it's okay? And then how do you answer all the questions that people have? Because I know people are going to have questions. Brenda Wynn, our county clerk is saying people are, will have to line up outside the door. How are you going to keep people socially distant? How do you get the word out to make sure people do understand what their options are under the current law? And I will also tell you that I'm going to let my dog out because she's at the door. So I'm going to disappear for just a minute. Go ahead.
Sure. So great question, Jim. What we have to do is we have to repeat until the polls close in August and November. And it's not just about me repeating it, traditional media, social media, both earned and unearned media. It's about also reaching out to groups like AARP. It's about reaching out to groups like 50 Forward. It's about, and every county has groups like that. It's about reaching through churches, to the Tennessee Grocers Association, to the Tennessee Convenience Store Association, to make sure that every possible avenue we can to help people understand how this election is going to be run, the things we are doing to protect the health of poll officials and voters that we are doing, and also helping people understand what avenues they have if they want to get an absentee ballot that they can. And so, the biggest thing I tell people, though, when I talk about encouraging people to vote, it's one thing for the Secretary of State to be on Facebook and Twitter and in the newspaper and on TV saying you ought to go vote. It's another thing when we all in our own spheres of influence will tell people why it's important. If we will reach out to our own family and friends, and especially those that we know might fit one of these criteria, and encourage them, hey, make sure they know they got an absentee ballot avenue there. We've got to be able to do that in a very intimate way. So we've got to use the megaphone of our office. Local election commissions have to use their megaphone, but also we in our own spheres of influence have to do that very same thing and try and be encouragers. One of the things that's been shocking to me is we've been running Facebook ads since May 8th, when the very first day that we could run, that we could get absentee ballot requests. And as of last Friday, we had over 800 comments to that Facebook ad. And we had so many people, responding back to me and saying, why are you allowing this? Why are you encouraging people to vote by mail? And so I know it's hard for people on both sides of this issue. And I already make people mad when I talk about both sides of this issue. But when you look nationally, this is not a Tennessee phenomenon. People are slowly but surely kind of dividing up. And we want people to understand what's at stake and understand what they have the ability to go do. And let's talk about those things, and let's try and cut out some of the shrillness of the conversation. Hey, my parents are both over 60. I'm not. I'll be there voting either in person, voting during early voting, or on election day. I mean, I'm going to be doing that. I'll be wearing my face covering when I go in August and November. I hope things are not like they are. I hope when people look at August, November, and especially August coming up, they're going to look at me and Mark Goins and other election officials around the state and say, wow, you prepared like that? Wow, you well prepared. I hope that's the case. I'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. And so recognizing that people around the state have very different ideas of the situation we're in, and we're navigating through all that on the current laws that we're in.
Okay. Still getting back to this absentee ballots. What if, I know you're setting up the preparations to try to deal with people coming in. How do you deal with somebody that could be asymptomatic, who has COVID-19, doesn't even know it, and comes into the poll? So I know, you're not, the cards and everything else, but you're in a room that maybe, sometimes it's a gym, sometimes it's a lot smaller. I agree with you on the sense of we need to be overly prepared. I mean, the law is what it is right now. You do, based upon the law, you've got to do whatever you can to follow it. But you're also dealing with a situation that we simply don't fully understand. And again, you're dealing with, it's those mass gatherings that really scare us. And so, we're watching the numbers every day. We're not sure what's going to happen. How do you, so the first question is, somebody who's asymptomatic, are you going to be taking people's temperature when they come in or no? And based upon the fact that if you're not, you're trying to keep everybody separate and kind of away from each other, is there anything, how do you make sure that people understand that, again, somebody could come into the polling place with the virus and you're coming right behind it and you're going to be voting? Again, you have to make sure that people understand that everything's going to be wiped down and you're going to be okay to go in. That's a tough, long question. Sorry.
That's a long question. So first, that goes back. Let me address it a couple of ways. Let's think about poll officials. The people are going to be there all day long. They're going to be going through the checklist each day, as well as having their temperature taken. And if they're symptomatic in any way, they're not going to be able to work. Okay, so we got to take them out of the equation because they could infect their fellow poll workers, even though they're wearing the appropriate PPE. The safest thing to do is get them out of there. They won't be working. Okay.
Okay.
Second is asymptomatic voters. Frankly, that's no different situation than you encountering that person anywhere else in society. We're going to be strongly encouraging people to wear a face covering, wearing their mask, wearing some type of face covering. We can't require them to do that. We talked about that. That's where social distancing comes in. And also one of the things that we talk about, we're going to have election officials out there encouraging people, hey, we need you to spread apart. We're going to have signs, stand here, 6 feet later, stand here, and so on down the line to make sure that people know that.
All right, let me ask you this. I'm trying to keep up all the questions coming in. All right, so obviously we don't have mail-in ballots here. How many states do that? Do you know how many states actually do that right now?
Well, once again, when you say mail-in ballots, it means different things. So if you're talking about absentee by mail, every state out there has some mechanism, I believe, that you can vote absentee by mail.
Okay.
When you talk about universal vote by mail, I believe, know of Colorado, know of Washington, know of Oregon. I think California may have this cycle gone to all vote by mail. So it means different things to different people. I mean, when I look at a slide, I was on an NCSL webinar the other day, it means so many different things.
Okay, I guess what I'm talking about, and I think somebody said universal vote by mail. How many, so everybody can, I know every state has absentee ballots, but I'm talking about, well, let me rephrase the question. Are there other states right now that are changing their laws, either permanently or temporarily, to deal with the fact that we're in a worldwide pandemic? And, you've got states, you've got people that are scared of, I mean, it's a strange conversation, Trey, because what we're doing is, in some ways, particularly with safer in place, we want people to stay at home. And obviously when we were going out through the safer in place, we were saying only come out for essential services. All right, so we're lifting in Davidson County, and the governor's listed around the state. But one of the things I know that is being done is to encourage people who have underlying health conditions, and particularly older Tennesseans, to stay in place. But now we're asking them to come out, and they may need to vote unless they can get an absentee ballot because they're 60 plus. I guess what I'm saying is, are there other states at this point that have changed their laws to address this at this point? Or can you even answer that at this point?
Well, Jim, I mean, I'm really focused on trying to run it within our laws and the advice we've gotten from election officials around the country, both Democrat and Republican. I'm not focused on what other states are necessarily trying to do, because if I keep my eye on that ball, then I'm not focusing on the law, the election I have to run under Tennessee law.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you, we only have about 10 minutes left. Here's a big question for you. Okay. I made this one up myself, I think. What if the numbers spike? And what if either August or November, what if all of a sudden we see major outbreaks? You know, again, a resurgence in the number. Let's hope not. But if a couple weeks before either election, all of a sudden the numbers just start going up, and all of a sudden there's a move to go safer in place, either across the state or back in Davidson County. Are there contingency plans about what to do?
Well, right now, I mean, I still, even if the number spiked 2 weeks out, I mean, I have to run under the laws that we have. You know, that's all. Those are the tools I've been given, and so I'm not going to address a hypothetical about what if. I mean, I have to address it under the laws that are in place.
Okay, so if and I'm just interested. So if we go safer in place, let's just hypothetically, let's pick the presidential election in November. We go safer in place a couple weeks before. The laws are still the law. Is there an ability for the governor to, does anybody have the ability to suspend our election so that we can, if we're safer in place and people are not coming out, is there an ability to suspend the election? Who has the ability to do that, or is that not allowed under state law or the Constitution?
Well, the U.S. Constitution prescribes when that election day is in November.
Okay.
So,
all right. So, assuming that, okay, so nothing changes with the United States Constitution. Nothing is done with that. Nobody has the ability to change that. Whatever. The election is what day? I don't even know what day it is. November it's the first, whatever, the first Tuesday in November. So if we're in a safer in place situation during that election, our election goes on with safer in place restrictions in place. Do you have any, and you may not, based upon the law, do you have any ability to do anything in a situation like that where we actually are telling people not to get out and we have an election going on? What's the best thing that we can do at that point?
I do not have any authority to do anything different than what I've done.
Right. Okay. The election is November the 3rd, because I couldn't remember.
Right.
I thought that was the right day. Okay, so let me ask you this. Go back to something you were saying about notifying people, because I think this is important. I know there's been issues about this. So people can't, it's not like, voter registration, and even that's an issue sometimes, but you can't get a bunch of absentee ballot forms and just go hand them out to people and say, hey, you can do it this way. People actually have to do it themselves, correct?
That is. I made that clear earlier. I mean, that's a request that the voter has to make of their local election commission, or they can go to our website and print out the form from our govotetn.com website and mail it to their local election commission.
All right. What about, is there anything that says, I mean, I know you're getting the messages out, but if, let's say a group wants to get a message out to people with the list of things that allow you to vote by absentee ballot and how to do it. Is that okay for groups to send out messages?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love for people to do that, regardless of where you are politically, regardless of what your ideology is. Let people know what those 14 ways are. Please do that. But just keep in mind, you can't be the one that gives them the form.
Okay.
Tell them, here's the 14, here's how you can go about this. And we had somebody who right instantly, actually a Republican group, instantly put something up on our website and said, let us know if you want to, vote absentee. And we had to real quickly tell them that you need to make sure that people know they can't get that request from you. That has to go to the local election commission. And so there's a lot of well-meaning people out there who want that message get out and help people, regardless of what your ideology is, regardless of what your party stripe is. There's a lot of well-meaning people. But here's how the law says go about that. Don't put yourself in legal peril. Tell people what those 14 reasons are. Direct them to the local election commission or our website.
What about, so like on a Meals on Wheels route, if you wanted to send out, an information sheet, that they could do that. They just can't send out the absentee ballot. They can send, hey, if you're, these are the reasons. they could do it that way, right? So
Yeah,
Meals on Wheels, anything like
absolutely.
that, could do it that way.
We're trying to partner with as many groups as possible. In fact, if groups, like that, I think you mentioned Meals on Wheels. If you want to partner with us and we can give you a flyer you can distribute, we're glad to do that. We love to have something that people just print off our website that they know can use. Go to our website and print out the 14 reasons and hand it to people. Do that.
Okay, so
go ahead. Somebody mentioned about me making this a partisan issue. If you go to Facebook or Twitter, it's a partisan issue for a lot of people out there. I really wish both sides would realize that we are trying to administer not in a Republican way, not a Democrat way. I'm trying to departisan this election. And it's hard to do when the very fact is in November, there's going to be a Republican nominee for president. There's going to be a Democrat nominee for president. And that's just a fact of life. What I'm concerned about is we are lining up right now where both parties are lining up their excuses for if they lose, why they lost. And then what that means is that we could face a situation, regardless if you're Minnesota, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Florida, what have you, that there's a lack of confidence in the results of elections. And also when you think about the large number of absentee ballots we expect to get, we're not going to have election night results on election night. I mean, it's going to be several days after. And there's a lot of states out there who are going to have more of an uphill climb than we do. So I'm going to be really stunned if we know official results of the election on election night. My encouragement to everybody, and look, we are in unprecedented times. Okay, this is going to be the ugliest election. It's going to be the most difficult election we've had to run in our lifetime. Okay, I encourage everybody to understand. Let's make sure that we do the best that we can in the situation we're in. I'm not saying that if you want to advocate and you want to support a change in the law, feel free to. Also, I want you to understand if you like the law the way it is, try to understand that not everybody's trying to steal an election or throw an election in some way. I believe that by and large in Tennessee, we are committed to try and run good, honest elections that meet the highest test of integrity, free of voter fraud, that also not just free of voter fraud, but maximize voter participation. Because both of those things are important. We have to have people participate in elections because people get one shot at it. And the last thing I'll say about that is some people say, well, voter fraud is negligible. For anybody on here that's run for office, if I made you sign something beforehand and said, hey, I want you to guarantee me if you lose by less than 1% of the vote, but there's questionable ballots out there, I just want you to tell me that you're not going to contest that election, then most candidates would say, well, I'm not going to guarantee that. The bottom line is, in a presidential race in Tennessee, 1 to 5 to 10 to 20 ballots is probably going to make a difference. It could make the difference who's elected to county offices. It could make the difference who's in the state house. It could make the difference in the state senate. And so what I have found is that voter fraud is something that people talk about because of scale. If you're talking about a handful of votes in a national election, probably feels less significant. If you're the candidate who lost by 2 to 3 votes in a local election, and you figure out that maybe some people should have voted or they didn't get their votes counted, should have gotten counted, then all of a sudden it's a big deal for you. So if we could all just kind of tone down the rhetoric, regardless what your political stripe is, and realize that it's not going to be pretty, and it's not going to be pretty in a red state, purple state, or blue state, the better off we're all going to be.
Well, it's 11. We certainly appreciate you coming on. This is a difficult subject, and it's very interesting. Again, unprecedented times. I mean, we're all dealing with all unique situations, from the vice mayor's role to the secretary of state. One last question real quick. So if somebody does want to request an absentee ballot, what's the deadline in terms of getting that in prior to the election? How much time do they have to, what's the deadline to get them in by?
July 30th, I believe is the date. 7 days prior to election day.
Okay, so that would be both in the August election in the November.
7 days prior. So you can start requesting 90 days out,
okay,
and it's off 7 days out.
And they have to be in 7 days out, or they have to be mailed in?
They have to be, great question, Jim. They have to be there by the time the polls close on election day.
Okay,
so
all right.
Don't wait to make your request. If you know you qualify, make the request now. Let's let your local election commission get you the ballots. You can get it turned back in, and don't run the risk of United States Postal Service not delivering your request or not delivering your ballot timely.
All right, Mr. Secretary, thank you. I know you have gotten more responses in, and I know some of them were. We've been reading them the same as you have, and I certainly appreciate you've got a tough role. It's a tough job. I know there's a lot of people saying different things about all this. I know that this is going to be a very interesting election year, but hang in there like everybody else. We appreciate you being willing to come on here and answer some difficult questions. I want you and your employees and your families to stay safe and just hang in there. You get the last word.
Jim, if I can, I just think it's great that on a Saturday morning, especially on Memorial Day weekend, we've got so many people, regardless of how you feel about this issue, that are willing to engage today. If it was easy, everybody go do it. I appreciate the privilege I've been given to serve, and and I recognize that there's people who I see their picture, I see their names. We're not in the same place philosophically. And I'm not talking about elections. I'm talking about on different issues out there. But I appreciate when people have called our office on this issue. So grateful for how respectful people have been, that I've been able to, by and large, with only a couple of exceptions, been able to have very civil, thoughtful conversations. And many times I hang up the phone and they tell me, well, Secretary or Trey, I just think you're wrong. And I'm like, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate the fact you called. And so I didn't think you'd call me back. I appreciate you calling me back. Yeah. So I'm grateful for that. And I don't take that lightly. And it weighs on me when I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm thinking about this upcoming election. And a lot of times I don't go back to sleep for quite some time thinking about every possible what if, how we can do everything we can possibly do under the confines of the current law. Well,
we appreciate your service. I think everybody does. It's not, again, very interesting times, very interesting, with a difficult election coming up anyway, as we all knew it probably would be. And now you've got the pandemic on top of it. It certainly makes for a very interesting year. So thank you for your service. What's interesting, Mr. Secretary, is that, we're talking about, all these difficult issues. Well, next week, we're going to have Kevin Convo, who is the finance director for Metro, on trying to talk through what's going on with Davidson County and Nashville's budget. And so it just keeps getting more and more interesting as we go through. But thank you for your service. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. And I really do appreciate you being on. And for everybody else who's been on the call, thank you. Lots of comments. We appreciate you listening. And everybody enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Be safe, and hopefully we'll talk to you all and maybe see you on video next Saturday. All right, signing off. Thanks, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Jim.